If you've ever tried to explain to a skeptic why they should be religious, you know the struggle. They want logic, not fairy tales. But what if the strongest argument for God is actually hidden in the increasing number of fine-tuned coincidences that are so hard to explain that more scientists are finally accepting the evidence for intelligent design? And when you pair it with the Kuzari Principle, a historical data point of millions of witnesses, you don't just get faith. You get statistical certainty from an unbroken tradition going back over 3,300 years. Here is how two physicists show that science and Mount Sinai are actually telling the same story. If you're talking to someone who is open-minded, imagine like a teenager, 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old, something like that, or a young adult, who is genuinely interested, doesn't have baggage, trauma, they just really don't know. And you only have a few minutes with them, a minute, let's say. You're standing in line with them somewhere, the library or a restaurant, I don't know, wherever. And they're like, hey, I notice you have, you have your kippah and you have your beard, like you're Jewish, I tzitzis. Like, why is it true? I've always wondered, like, why is it just a belief or is there something deeper there? You have a minute with the guy. Like, what do you say to them?
Oh,
You have 30 seconds, 1 minute. He's a thinker. He's a logical thinker. He wants to know. He's not looking to argue. He just doesn't know. And he just, something pops in his mind. He wants to know. Like, what's your elevator pitch for why Judaism's true?
So I might ask him, why should the world exist? Is there anything? It's one, just to get the individual thinking a little bit, and maybe could share the concept of fine tuning of the universe, where the principles are so finely tuned. I guess Steven Weinberg had pointed out once, the late physicist, that even the decay rate of beryllium, I have a special connection with this atom, and I think 183 decimal points, he said. He said that you need that many decimal points, and if you're not within that precise tuning, you're not going to get heavy elements, and presumably you're not going to get life. And there's all these fine-tuned properties of the universe. I've seen lists of 20, lists of 70 and growing. If the properties of the universe were not so finely tuned to a degree where to get the right universe where you could have matter and have life, so you'd need like 10 to the 10 to the, Penrose says 123, others say 17. There's different numbers, but either way, it's much larger than the number of particles in the universe. So in the whole universe, according to modern estimates.
Right.
So I might ask the individual, so which do you think is more likely? There's that many universes that we can't see, or that our universe just has an essential reality beneath it, which many have attested to throughout history, the existence of Hashem.
If you're enjoying this excerpt from my podcast with Dr. Epstein, be sure to sign up for my weekly newsletter so you don't miss out on a sneak preview of my upcoming book on the synthesis of Torah and science. The link is in a pinned comment below the subscribe button. So then, very good. So then he would say, okay, I've heard the intelligent design argument. I can see that there's a God. Like I can fathom that. Like it seems possible or probable. But why Judaism? My mother's Jewish. I've been invited to these, a Hanukkah party or a Passover Seder, but this whole, I have to wait in shul all day for Rosh Hashanah, they're blowing the shofar, Yom Kippur, I have to sit outside in the sukkah where it's nice, but here usually it's very schwitzy. What's with all these? Why Judaism? Why can't I just be a Buddhist or a Hindu or just be spiritual? There's a whole new spiritual movement. Like, why can't I just do that and believe in the loving kindness and, okay, there's intelligent design, fine. But evolution, maybe. What? I'm not looking into why Judaism. I'm Jewish. Why should I keep mitzvahs?
One could say, well, there's more wisdom within Judaism than all of the other religions. You could say, I've heard this from not only people who have joined Judaism, but even people who unfortunately left Judaism. So even they admit there's more depth, more wisdom within Judaism.
And I definitely saw that.
And I could say, so let's study it. Oh, yeah.
No, but for me, that came after. Well, I heard Lawrence Kalaman talk about the Kuzari argument, right? And the Rebbe also speaks about that in letters, and it's not just them. The argument's been back that there's a Masorah, there's an unbroken tradition that goes all the way back, and that if you don't have, that's the argument I tend to use. I don't know if you use that with people, but that's the better. And YY Jacobson also says everything relies on that. So I don't know if you agree with that, but I ascribe to that. That the bedrock foundation for the validity of Judaism is the Masorah argument, that God gave the Torah to Moshe at Har Sinai, there was 600,000 adult Jewish men, 7 million Jews, and there's an unbroken tradition that goes all the way back from then till now. And that once you've accepted that, that for me was my leap to start exploring it and saying, hey, actually, there is a lot of wisdom here. Actually, this is very interesting. Actually, the intelligent design is interesting. So I'm curious if that's a method that you use and or what you think of that, or if you just naturally like to go towards the intelligent design and the Chachma route.
I do quite like the argument you mentioned. And I've seen precedents, of course, that the Rambam understands it to be such a yesod of our Emunah as Yidden, that this unbroken Masorah going back to Sinai. And yeah, I think it's a very powerful argument. I do like to bring it as well. I think it's something that shows the chiluk the difference between Judaism and other religions to a large degree. And usually my tendency is not to be toila everything on one argument to the other. I like to build, I'm sure
it depends on the
we only have
person.
a couple of minutes, of course.
Depends on the person.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this excerpt, click here to see the full podcast episode. And if you want to learn how quantum mechanics proves the Bible's age of the universe, click here. Thank you for partnering with me as we build this unshakable conviction together.